The Thornton Estate, a $500 million anniversary celebration. 400 of America's wealthiest elites gathered beneath crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. And one black maid who dared to speak. "Ma'am, your champagne is ready." Veronica Thornton spun around. Her diamond-draped hand slapped the glass away. Crystals shattered across marble floors. "Did I ask you to speak?" Her voice sliced through the ballroom like a razor. "A black maid, touching my glass, with those filthy hands." Guests turned to watch. Someone snickered. A phone rose to record the humiliation. "You people shouldn't even breathe the same air as us. Know your place. You're nothing but hired help." Bottom of the food chain. Ivy Anderson stood frozen. Champagne dripped down her white uniform. 400 faces stared. Not one defended her. But none of them, especially the woman spitting venom, could imagine what would happen next. Before this night ended, that same black maid would scream 2 words that would destroy a 25-year marriage and expose a $500 million betrayal. 72 hours earlier, the alarm screamed at 5:03 a.m. Ivy Anderson's hand shot out from beneath the thin, threadbare blanket, silencing it before the second ring could disturb her daughter. In the narrow bed pushed against the opposite wall of their cramped one-bedroom apartment, 6-year-old Maya stirred but didn't wake, her small fingers still clutching the one-eyed teddy bear she refused to sleep without. Ivy lay still for a long moment, staring at the water stains spreading across the ceiling like a slow-growing cancer. She'd memorized every crack in that ceiling over 3 years. 14 jagged lines that seemed to multiply after each rainstorm. The landlord never fixed anything. Why would he? Tenants like Ivy couldn't afford to complain. Then she moved. Quietly. Efficiently. The way poor people learn to move. Without wasting time, without wasting motion, without wasting the precious energy that hope required. The bathroom mirror showed a 29-year-old woman who looked 35 on her good days. Dark circles carved permanent grooves beneath exhausted eyes that had seen too much disappointment. Hair pulled back tight against her scalp, not for style, but because she couldn't afford products or salon visits. Hands rough and cracked from years of harsh cleaning chemicals, the skin perpetually dry no matter how much dollar store lotion she applied. But those hands had once held beakers in a Howard University laboratory. Those tired eyes had once scanned advanced organic chemistry textbooks until 3 a.m., fueled by ambition and cheap coffee. That weary mind had once calculated molecular weights and dreamed of a PhD, a research career, a corner office with Dr. Ivy Anderson etched on the door. Before everything fell apart, she splashed cold water on her face. No time for hot water, and besides, the gas bill was already 3 weeks overdue. She'd learned to ration everything, every penny stretched until it screamed, every drop of water measured, every ounce of hope carefully preserved for Maya's sake. In the kitchen, if you could call a hot plate, a mini fridge older than Maya, and 2 feet of cracked Formica countertop a kitchen, Ivy prepared her daughter's lunch with practiced efficiency. Peanut butter sandwich cut diagonal because Maya insisted triangles tasted better than rectangles. Apple slices arranged into a smiley face. A juice box purchased on sale, 3 for $1, the kind with too much sugar and not enough real fruit. And tucked inside the worn brown paper bag, a handwritten note on torn notebook paper. "You're my sunshine. Have a great day. Love, Mommy." She wrote that note every single morning without fail. Even when the electricity got cut off for 3 days last February and they ate cold cereal by candlelight. Even when dinner was saltine crackers and tap water because payday was still 4 days away. Even when Ivy cried herself to sleep, muffling her sobs in the pillow so Maya wouldn't hear, wondering how she'd make rent, wondering if tomorrow would finally be the day everything collapsed completely. Maya would never know how close they lived to the edge. That was Ivy's job, her sacred responsibility. to stand between her daughter and the abyss, to absorb every blow so Maya could keep believing the world was safe and good and full of possibility. "Mommy?" Ivy turned. Maya stood in the bedroom doorway, teddy bear, Mr. Buttons, named for the button eyes that had both fallen off and been replaced with mismatched ones Ivy found in a thrift store sewing kit, clutched against her thin chest. Her pink pajamas were 2 sizes too small, the fabric straining at every seam, the cuffs riding up past her ankles. "Hey, baby girl." Ivy softened her voice, pushing exhaustion aside. "Go back to sleep. It's still early. Are you going to work again?" "Yeah, sweetheart. Mrs. Patterson will take you to school today, remember?" Maya patted across the cold linoleum floor. They couldn't afford rugs, couldn't afford heating the apartment above 60 degrees, and wrapped her small arms around Ivy's waist. She pressed her warm cheek against her mother's stomach and squeezed tight. "Mommy, when can we have pancakes at a restaurant, like the kids on TV?" The question hit Ivy like a physical blow to the chest. Such a simple thing. Pancakes at a restaurant. Something millions of children took completely for granted. Something Maya had never experienced in her entire 6 years of life, because Ivy couldn't afford the $15 it would cost. Couldn't justify spending money on restaurant food when that $15 could buy groceries for 3 days. Ivy knelt down slowly, her knees protesting, bringing herself eye level with her daughter. She cupped Maya's perfect little face in her rough, work-damaged hands and looked into those trusting brown eyes. "Soon, baby. Real soon. Mommy's working hard, and we're getting there. I promise." "Pinky promise?" Ivy linked her pinky finger with Maya's tiny one. "Pinky promise." Maya smiled. That pure, radiant, innocent smile that could light up the darkest room, that made every exhausting double shift and every skipped meal and every sleepless night worth enduring. "Okay, Mommy. I believe you. I believe you." 3 words heavier than any burden Ivy had ever carried in her life. The bus to divine occasions. Catering took 47 minutes each way, an hour and a half of Ivy's day spent in transit, time she couldn't bill, time stolen from sleep and Maya. But Ivy used every second productively. She scrolled through chemistry formulas on her cracked phone screen, the glass spider-webbed from a fall she couldn't afford to repair. Organic compounds, molecular structures, pharmaceutical interactions. The periodic table she'd memorized at 17, back when the future still seemed full of infinite possibility, back when she'd believed hard work and intelligence guaranteed success. Knowledge she'd paid $80,000 to acquire through student loans she would never finish repaying. Knowledge now seemingly useless, buried beneath debt that accumulated interest faster than she could chip away at the principal. 2 years into her master's program at Howard University, 2 years of perfect grades, glowing professor recommendations, and a promising research trajectory. The phone call came. The call that shattered everything. Her father, James Anderson, the man who had worked brutal double shifts at a manufacturing plant for 26 years to fund her education, who had never missed a single tuition payment despite never taking a vacation, who had told her every day that she was destined for greatness, was dead. Industrial accident. Machine malfunction. Safety protocols ignored by a company that valued profit over human lives. No compensation offered because the corporate lawyers found a technicality. No life insurance because her father had canceled the policy 2 years earlier to help pay for her textbooks. Just a body in a morgue. Medical bills that devoured their meager savings within a week. Funeral costs they couldn't afford but paid anyway because James Anderson deserved dignity in death. And a grieving mother, Dorothy Anderson, already struggling with early onset arthritis and diabetes, who needed daily care that Ivy couldn't provide while sitting in a classroom 200 miles away. She dropped out 3 weeks before finals, packed her textbooks into boxes she'd never unpack, took any job that would have her, waitress at a diner that closed 6 months later when the owner's gambling debts caught up with him, night cleaner at an office building until her back gave out from scrubbing floors on her hands and knees, retail associate, hotel housekeeper, and finally, catering server, anonymous, invisible, replaceable, just another brown face in a white uniform. The chemistry stayed locked in her head. Every formula, every reaction pathway, every dream of what could have been. But dreams didn't pay rent. 3 years earlier. The worst night of Ivy's life. The gas station sign flickered orange against an endless black November sky. 2:17 a.m. Cold enough to see your breath hang in the air like departing spirits. Ivy sat on a concrete bench beside the air pump, 3-year-old Maya asleep in her arms. The child's face was peaceful, trusting, blissfully unaware that her entire world had collapsed into rubble. Everything they owned fit into 2 garbage bags at Ivy's feet, clothes that no longer fit properly, Maya's beloved teddy bear, a handful of photographs from better times, the chemistry textbooks Ivy couldn't bear to abandon, even though they mocked her with memories of the future she'd lost. Evicted. 12 hours ago. The landlord had changed the locks while she worked a double shift at the catering company. When she'd returned home at midnight, her belongings were piled on the sidewalk like trash awaiting collection. No warning. No grace period. Just locks changed and a handwritten note. Rent overdue. Property reclaimed. The car had been repossessed 3 days before that. She'd fallen 2 payments behind after Maya's ear infection required a $400 emergency room visit that insurance didn't cover. The homeless shelter was full. "Come back tomorrow," the exhausted intake worker had said, avoiding eye contact. But tomorrow was already here, and Ivy was still outside, and Maya was still sleeping against her chest, and she had absolutely no idea what came next. 36 hours without sleep, arms aching from holding Maya's weight, stomach long past growling. It had simply surrendered, mind cycling through impossible equations that had no solutions. No money, no family left who could help, no friends with spare rooms, no options. Cars pulled in and out of the gas station. People filled their tanks, bought energy drinks and lottery tickets, lived their ordinary lives just 10 feet away from a woman whose existence had imploded. Nobody looked at her. Nobody saw her. She was invisible. In America, poverty wore an invisibility cloak, especially poverty wrapped in dark skin and holding a sleeping child. Then a white Mercedes pulled into the station, and everything changed. Saturday. The day of the anniversary party. The catering van wound through Connecticut countryside for 2 hours before reaching the gates. 2 hours of watching the landscape transform. From ordinary suburbs to wealthy enclaves to something that looked like another country entirely. Stone walls lined every property. Ancient oak trees shaded private roads. Estates sprawled behind iron fences, each one larger than the last. Then they reached the Thornton gates. Iron gates, 20 feet tall, twisted into elaborate decorative patterns that probably required a team of artisan metal workers and cost more than Ivy's apartment building. Armed security guards in suits nicer than anything she'd ever owned stood at attention, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the overcast sky. "ID and work authorization," the nearest guard said flatly, barely glancing at the van full of black and brown faces pressed against windows in matching white uniforms. His tone made clear they weren't guests. They were labor, interchangeable, forgettable. Karen handed over the paperwork. The guard scanned it with an electronic device that probably cost more than Ivy's monthly salary. The gates swung open with mechanical precision, and Ivy Anderson crossed into another universe. The Thornton estate sprawled across 50 acres of manicured perfection. Rolling lawns trimmed with mathematical precision by an army of landscapers. A private lake reflecting the gray autumn sky like polished glass. Rose gardens arranged in geometric patterns visible from satellites. A hedge maze that probably required its own maintenance team. And the mansion. It rose from the landscape like something conjured from a fever dream about wealth. Marble columns imported from Italian quarries. Floor-to-ceiling windows, hundreds of them, each one sparkling clean. A circular driveway of crushed white stone surrounding a fountain where golden cherubs poured eternal water from golden urns. "Jesus Christ," Darnell whispered, face pressed against the van window. "This is one house? For one family?" Ivy couldn't respond. Her throat had sealed shut. The main building alone was larger than her entire apartment complex, larger than the block she'd grown up on, larger than any structure she'd ever entered in her 29 years of existence. This was where Eleanor Thornton Hayes lived. This was the world that had produced a woman kind enough to stop for a homeless stranger at 2 a.m. It was also, clearly, a world harboring something dark enough to put those haunted shadows in Eleanor's recent photographs. The service entrance led through gray concrete hallways, functional, cold, deliberately hidden from anyone who mattered. These were the arteries that kept the golden heart pumping, designed to be invisible. Through doorways and gaps, Ivy glimpsed the real estate. Crystal chandeliers dripping light worth more than her lifetime earnings. Renaissance paintings that belonged in museums. Flower arrangements flown in fresh from 3 different continents, assembled by artists whose hourly rate exceeded her weekly paycheck. The contrast was violent, obscene. Service hallways and grand rooms existed inches apart, separated by doors that divided humanity into 2 categories, those who served and those who were served. Ms. Richardson, the event planner, a severe woman with a clipboard and the warmth of a glacier, addressed the catering staff like a general briefing expendable soldiers before a suicide mission. "You are invisible. You do not speak unless directly addressed. You do not make eye contact with guests. You serve, you clear, you disappear. Understood?" 15 servers nodded silently. The Thorntons are not merely wealthy. They are legacy, old money, real power. One mistake, one complaint, one uncomfortable moment for any guest, and your careers are finished. Am I clear? Crystal clear. During break, Ivy walked the grounds alone, needing air, needing to process that she, a woman who couldn't afford her daughter's school fees, stood where the doorknobs could pay off her student loans. She found the rose garden. Empty. Beautiful. Then she saw Eleanor, thin, haunted, being dragged toward the mansion by her husband Gregory, his fingers digging into her arm. From a window above, Veronica Thornton watched and smiled. The crisis erupted 4 hours before the party. Ivy was arranging champagne flutes with surgical precision, exactly 1 inch apart, as Ms. Richardson had demonstrated 17 times, when shouting exploded from the wine storage room like a bomb detonating. "This is a disaster, an absolute unmitigated catastrophe, Ms." Richardson stood among opened wooden crates, her face crimson with fury, hands trembling with rage. 2 delivery men cowered against the stone wall, clearly terrified. "These bottles are completely ruined. Temperature variance during transport destroyed them entirely. $40,000 of irreplaceable wine, spoiled, gone." Karen rushed in, nearly colliding with Ivy in the doorway. "What happened?" 6 cases of 1998 Chateau Margaux, stored at improper temperature during the 3-hour drive from the climate-controlled warehouse. The Thorntons specifically requested this vintage for the anniversary toast. It's irreplaceable on this timeline. The party is in 4 hours. Ivy moved closer without conscious decision. Her eyes scanned the bottles with automatic precision, the color visible through dark glass, the sediment patterns, the position of the corks within the necks. Something didn't add up. She'd studied this phenomenon extensively, years ago in another lifetime, when she still had a future worth planning. Wine oxidation chemistry, temperature effects on tannin polymerization, the molecular signatures that distinguished genuine spoilage from temporary stress. The science crystallized in her mind, clear as the day she'd learned it. "Ma'am?" Ms. Richardson spun around, eyes blazing with barely contained fury. "Did a server just speak to me unbidden?" "The wine isn't spoiled, ma'am." Ivy kept her voice calm, respectful, professionally detached. "May I explain? 30 seconds." "You may absolutely not. Please, if I'm wrong, fire me. If I'm right, you save $40,000. Something in Ivy's certainty, or perhaps her desperation, made Ms. Richardson pause mid-dismissal. 30 seconds, not one more." Ivy pointed to the first group of bottles. "The temperature fluctuation during transport stressed the wine significantly, yes. But stress isn't spoilage. They're completely different chemical processes. See the sediment pattern in these bottles? It's settled evenly at the bottom in a classic crescent formation. That indicates the tannin structure destabilized temporarily, but has since restabilized. Some master sommeliers actually do this deliberately. They call it controlled stress micro-decanting. It can enhance certain flavor profiles." She moved to another cluster. "These 6 cases are not only viable, they're potentially superior to what you'd get from bottles that never left climate control. The stress actually accelerated beneficial polymerization." Then she indicated the remaining crates. "But these 4 cases, see how the sediment is distributed unevenly, almost granular? And notice the slight cloudiness near the cork. That milky quality? That's actual oxidation. The corks were compromised during transport. Hairline fractures from the temperature swing. These bottles should absolutely be discarded." Absolute silence filled the stone room. Every person present stared at the black woman in the catering uniform who had just delivered a master class in enological chemistry. Ms. Richardson's eyes narrowed to surgical slits. "And you know all this how, exactly?" "I studied organic chemistry at Howard University. 2 years of my master's program before circumstances forced me to withdraw. Wine chemistry was my faculty advisor's specialty, Dr. Patricia Coleman. She consulted for Napa Valley Vineyards. I assisted with her research." "A catering server with a master's degree in chemistry?" "I have 2 years of a master's degree, ma'am. Life doesn't follow the plans we write for it." They tested her theory. A junior sommelier was summoned, a thin, nervous young man who clearly hadn't expected to be called upon for an emergency diagnosis. He swirled each sample, sniffed with practiced concentration, tasted with appropriate ceremony. Ivy was right. The 6 cases she'd identified were not merely acceptable. They were excellent, perhaps even enhanced by the stress. The 4 she'd flagged had indeed turned, subtle enough that an amateur palate would miss it, but unmistakable to trained senses. "She's entirely correct," the sommelier confirmed, clearly impressed despite himself. "The first group is superior to specifications. The second is definitely compromised." Ms. Richardson stared at Ivy for a long, uncomfortable moment. Something shifted behind her eyes. Not warmth exactly, but perhaps a grudging recalibration of assumptions. "You just saved this event $30,000, she said finally. "And quite possibly saved my professional reputation as well." Ivy simply nodded. "Just doing my job, ma'am." She returned to her champagne flutes, feeling the weight of new attention on her back. The invisible woman had been seen, and judging by some expressions in the room, not everyone was pleased about it. 20 minutes later, a distinguished voice spoke from behind her. "So you're the chemistry expert who saved my wine." Ivy turned. William Thornton III stood in the kitchen doorway, 68 years old, silver hair swept back from a weathered, intelligent face, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than her annual salary. But his eyes weren't the cold, calculating eyes she'd expected from a billionaire who'd crushed competitors and acquired companies for decades. They were curious, warm, genuinely interested. "Yes, sir," Ivy Anderson. Howard University, I'm told. Master's program in organic chemistry. Impressive institution, impressive field. 2 years before I had to withdraw, sir. Why did you leave? Direct. No polite evasion. No pretending he was just making small talk. My father died, sir. Factory accident. Machine malfunction at a manufacturing plant. No insurance. No safety protocols followed. No compensation offered. She kept her voice steady through sheer willpower. My mother needed care. I had to make a choice. William was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I'm sorry for your loss, he said finally. Not performatively, not the way wealthy people usually offered condolences, that empty gesture that meant nothing. He said it like someone who understood loss intimately. Thank you, sir. Everyone assumes I was born into all of this. He gestured vaguely at the mansion surrounding them, the gleaming appliances, the marble countertops, the army of servants. Trust funds, private schools, summer homes in the Hamptons, old money stretching back generations. Ivy remained silent. I grew up in a trailer park in McDowell County, West Virginia. Poorest county in the state, still is probably. My father was a coal miner who died of black lung when I was 16. My mother cleaned other people's houses 14 hours a day to keep us fed. He looked around the kitchen, at the crystal, the silver, the absurd accumulation of wealth. I built every piece of this from nothing. 40 years of work. 40 years of people telling me I didn't belong, didn't deserve it, should go back where I came from. A small, rueful smile crossed his face. But people forget that part. They see the money now and assume it was always there. Why are you telling me this, sir? His eyes locked onto hers with sudden, unsettling intensity. Because I've learned to read people, Ms. Anderson. 40 years in business teaches you that survival skill, or it destroys you. And I can see something in you that most people miss entirely. What's that, sir? Integrity. The real kind. The kind that can't be purchased with money, can't be faked with performance, can't be taught in schools. He paused. Hold on to that. In this world, especially in this world, integrity is the rarest commodity there is. Karen appeared at Ivy's elbow 30 minutes later, grinning wider than Ivy had ever seen her grin. Anderson, major news, life-changing news. Good or bad? The best news you'll hear this year. The Thorntons want you on their permanent catering roster. Premium events only. Galas, charity balls, private dinners. $22 an hour, guaranteed 40 hours minimum every single week. Ivy's breath stopped in her chest. Are you serious? Dead serious. They requested you by name. By name, Anderson. Do you understand how rare that is? In 15 years running this company, I've never seen a client request a specific server. $22 an hour. Guaranteed hours. That was rent covered with money left over. Bills paid on time for the first time in 3 years. School fees handled. Medical debt slowly shrinking. Maybe, finally, miraculously, pancakes at a restaurant. Thank you, Ivy whispered, tears threatening to spill. Thank you so much. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You earned this. During her evening break, Ivy stepped into the service hallway and called Mrs. Patterson's house with trembling fingers. Hello? It's Ivy. Is Maya awake? Just finished her bath. Hold on, sweetheart. Rustling sounds, small footsteps. Then the voice that made everything worthwhile. Mommy? Hey, baby girl, how was your day? Good. Mrs. Patterson made mac and cheese, the orange kind from the box. Ivy laughed through her tears. That sounds delicious. It was, and we watched cartoons and I drew you a flower picture and... Baby, listen, Mommy has big news. She pressed the phone tight against her ear, as if she could hold her daughter through the signal. I got a better job today, a much better job. Silence. Then small and hopeful. Does that mean? Yeah, sweetheart. Pancakes. A real restaurant. With syrup and whipped cream and everything. Soon. Maya squealed. Pure, uncomplicated joy transmitted through cellular waves. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. More than all the pancakes. More than all the pancakes in the entire world. She didn't see the figure watching from the shadows at the hallway's end. Lydia, server uniform, cold, calculating eyes. She'd heard everything, and she worked for Veronica. 8:00 p.m. The party began. 400 guests poured through the grand entrance like silk and diamonds given human form. Governors and senators mingled with Fortune 500 CEOs. Old money regarded new money with polite contempt. Everyone calculated everyone else's net worth while pretending not to care about such vulgar matters. Ivy circulated through the glittering crowd with her tray of champagne, her presence perfectly invisible, exactly as instructed. Rich people's parties were fundamentally identical, she'd learned. Different zip codes, same hollow conversations. Different chandeliers, same fake smiles. But tonight felt different. Electricity hummed beneath the crystal chandeliers like a brewing storm. Tension she couldn't name, couldn't locate, but felt in her bones like a change in barometric pressure. She spotted William Thornton working the room, shaking hands with practiced ease, accepting congratulations on 25 years of marriage. But his smile never reached his eyes. He kept checking his phone when he thought nobody was watching, looking toward the entrance like he expected or dreaded, someone's arrival. Veronica, by sharp contrast, blazed with almost manic energy. The perfect hostess. Every smile calculated to the millimeter, every touch on a guest's arm precisely calibrated for maximum charm. 25 years of marriage, Ivy thought, watching them orbit each other without ever truly connecting, and they can barely stand to breathe the same air. Eleanor arrived at 8:30. She entered on Gregory's arm, wearing a dove-gray gown that couldn't hide how painfully thin she'd become. Professional makeup concealed the shadows under her eyes, but Ivy saw them anyway, recognized them from her own mirror during the darkest years. Gregory's hand rested on Eleanor's lower back. Not supportive, possessive, the hand of ownership, not partnership. Eleanor scanned the room with hollow eyes. Searching for what? An escape route? A friendly face? Proof that she hadn't imagined her own life? Her gaze passed over Ivy without the slightest flicker of recognition. Of course it didn't. To Eleanor, that night at the gas station was probably one act of kindness among hundreds. A forgotten moment in a lifetime of privilege. To Ivy, it was the rope that pulled her from the abyss. At 9:15 p.m., Ivy entered the service bathroom to wash champagne residue from her hands. She pushed the door open. Eleanor Thornton Hayes stood at the marble sink, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Mascara streamed down her cheeks in dark rivers. Her whole body trembled like a leaf in a hurricane. For a frozen moment, neither woman moved. "I'm sorry," Eleanor whispered, frantically dabbing at her face with a paper towel. "You shouldn't see this. I'm fine. Completely fine." Ivy's training screamed, "Leave. This isn't your business. You're invisible here." Her heart screamed something else entirely. "Ma'am?" She stepped closer. "Are you safe?" Eleanor laughed, a broken, bitter sound that echoed off marble walls. "Safe?" She turned to face Ivy, mascara still running, pretense completely abandoned. "No one is safe in this family. Not anymore. Maybe not ever." "Is there someone I can call? Someone who can help you?" Eleanor's red-rimmed eyes studied Ivy's face with sudden sharp intensity. Her brow furrowed. "Do I know you? Have we met somewhere before?" Ivy's pulse quickened. The business card burned in her pocket like a physical weight. "I don't think so, ma'am. No, there's something familiar. I've seen those eyes before. I'm certain of it. Before Ivy could respond, a voice boomed from the hallway. Eleanor? Where are you? Gregory. Eleanor's entire demeanor transformed in an instant. The tears vanished. Her spine straightened. A mask slammed down over her features. The practiced mask of a woman who had learned to hide her pain behind perfect composure. I have to go. She was gone before Ivy could speak another word. 10 o'clock p.m. Toast preparations. Ivy was assigned to help arrange the head table's champagne service, 20 crystal flutes for family members and honored guests. The staging room was off-limits to most staff, but Ivy's new status as the chemistry expert had granted her temporary clearance. She entered the room quietly, carrying replacement glasses, and froze. Veronica Thornton stood at the preparation table. Beside her, Conrad Wells, the razor-faced man from earlier. Veronica held a small glass vial, clear liquid. She was carefully pouring its contents into a specific champagne glass, one marked with a tiny black ribbon around its stem. The dosage must be exact, Veronica murmured. Too much and the taste will change. Too little and it won't achieve the desired effect. Relax, Conrad replied, his tone bored, professional. I've calculated everything precisely. Combined with his cardiac medication, this compound will trigger what appears to be natural heart failure. The coroner will see an elderly man with a documented history of heart problems who had one glass too many at his own anniversary celebration. Tragic. Completely unsuspicious. Case closed. Ivy stopped breathing. Her chemistry brain processed the information faster than conscious thought could follow. Clear pharmaceutical compound. Calculated interaction with cardiac medication, designed to mimic natural heart failure. They're going to murder William Thornton. Tonight, at his own anniversary party. She must have made a sound, a gasp, the slight clink of glasses on her tray. Conrad's head snapped toward the doorway like a predator sensing prey. Their eyes locked. Time stopped. Well, he said slowly, a cold smile spreading across his razor face. We have a problem. Ivy ran, service hallways, kitchen, looking for security, for help, for anyone who would believe what she'd just witnessed. A hand shot from nowhere and yanked her sideways through a doorway into a dark storage closet. Conrad Wells, face inches from hers, eyes empty of anything resembling mercy or human warmth. What you think you saw, he said softly, almost gently. You didn't see. Let go. Listen very carefully. His grip tightened until she felt bruises forming beneath his fingers. You're going to return to serving champagne. You're going to smile and be invisible and forget everything. And then you're going to live a long, happy life with that sweet little daughter of yours. Ivy's blood turned to ice water. Yes, Maya, 6 years old, currently staying with Mrs. Patterson at 1847 Elm Street. His smile widened. Cute kid. Pink pajamas, 2 sizes too small. Teddy bear named Mr. Buttons. Terror closed around her throat like a fist. Please, finish your shift. Go home. Hug your daughter. Nothing happened tonight. He released her arm. Do we understand each other perfectly? She couldn't speak, could only nod. Excellent. He straightened his jacket, brushed invisible lint from his sleeve. Now smile, Ms. Anderson. It's a celebration. He walked away. Ivy collapsed against the shelves, shaking, gasping. They're going to murder a man tonight, and if I say anything, they'll kill my daughter. But then she thought of Eleanor, crying alone in that bathroom. William. Integrity is rare. And a gas station at 2 a.m. A stranger who didn't have to help. Everyone deserves a safe night. Ivy stood, wiped her eyes, made her choice. 10:52 p.m. The string quartet swelled to its crescendo. 400 guests gathered in the grand ballroom, crystal flutes raised and ready for the anniversary toast that would mark 25 years of marriage. Ivy positioned herself at the back of the room, heart slamming against her ribs like a caged animal desperate for escape. The glass with the black ribbon sat in William Thornton's unsuspecting hand. 15 seconds. She scanned the crowd, found Conrad near the exit, watching her with those dead reptilian eyes, ready to make good on his threat if she made the wrong move. 10 seconds. She thought of Maya, Mr. Buttons, pink pajamas. 5 seconds. She thought of integrity. William cleared his throat, raised the poisoned glass toward his lips. Ladies and gentlemen, 25 years ago today, don't drink it! The scream tore from Ivy's throat before conscious thought could stop it. She shoved through the crowd, bodies parted in shock, gasps echoed through the ballroom, security guards surged toward her from every direction. Don't drink it! The champagne is poisoned! 2 guards grabbed her arms, lifting her nearly off her feet. She struggled, screamed again. Your wife poisoned it! I saw her! Veronica's laugh rang out. Perfect, controlled, dismissive. William, darling, this poor woman has clearly suffered some kind of mental breakdown. Security, remove her immediately. The guards began dragging Ivy toward the exit. The crowd murmured. Shock, confusion, scattered nervous laughter at the spectacle. Someone raised a phone to record the humiliation. But William hadn't moved. He stood frozen, champagne glass still raised, staring at Ivy with an expression she couldn't read. He remembered her. The kitchen. The wine. Integrity is rare. Wait, he said. The single word cut through chaos like a blade through silk. Everyone froze. Let her speak. The guards loosened their grip. Ivy stood there, disheveled, champagne-stained, tears streaming, facing the most powerful man in the room. Sir, her voice trembled but didn't break. I saw your wife put something in that specific glass. A clear liquid from a vial. I heard them discussing your heart medication, how it would appear to be natural cardiac arrest. Please, just have it tested. If I'm wrong, I'll accept any consequence. Veronica stepped forward, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. William, this is insane. You're going to believe a black maid, a servant, over your own wife of 25 years? The ugly words hung in the air, deliberate, calculated to remind everyone present of the hierarchy, the social order, the way things were supposed to be. William looked at the glass in his hand, then at Veronica, then at Ivy. If you're innocent, he said quietly, you have nothing to fear from a simple test. Silence. Call Dr. Simmons. Have this analyzed immediately. For half a second, a fraction of a heartbeat, Veronica's mask cracked, and Ivy saw what lived beneath it. Fear. Cut. Midnight. William's private study. The party was suspended. Guests sent home with apologetic confusion, the estate sealed. William sat alone in darkness. Impossible. Insane. But that look in Veronica's eyes when he'd demanded the test. He called Daniel Moore, head of security. I need everything. Bank records, phone communications, Veronica's private files, all of it. Tonight. Sir, are you absolutely certain? A stranger risked everything to warn me. The least I can do is find out whether she was right. 2:38 a.m. Veronica slept, or pretended to. William entered her private office, a room he'd never searched in 25 years of marriage. He'd trusted her completely. Fool. The safe hid behind a landscape painting. He tried combinations. Anniversary, birthday, nothing. Then, the date of his heart attack. 3 years ago. Click. Inside, a folder marked Contingency. Life insurance modification. $50 million. Beneficiary changed 6 months ago. Prenuptial amendments. His signature obviously forged. Medical research printouts. Pharmaceutical interactions with cardiac medication. Lethal dosages highlighted in yellow. Photographs of Eleanor's first husband, taken 3 weeks before his accidental drowning. A burner phone. William opened the messages, hands trembling. Everything ready for Saturday. After the toast, call the ambulance. Make it look natural. We've waited long enough. V. He sat down heavily. 25 years. 3 children. A life built together. All of it a carefully constructed lie. And a stranger in a catering uniform had seen through it in a single night. 4:00 a.m. Master bedroom. The overhead light blazed on without warning. Veronica pulled the silk sleep mask from her eyes, squinting against the sudden brightness. William stood at the foot of the bed, the contingency folder clutched in his hands. "Good morning, Veronica." She sat up slowly, her eyes tracking immediately to the folder. Recognition flickered across her features, followed instantly by calculation. "William, what's going on? What time is it?" He tossed the folder onto the bed. Documents scattered across Egyptian cotton sheets like evidence at a crime scene. 25 years ago, he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I made you a promise. I promised to love you, trust you, build a life together." He paused. "I kept every single one of those promises." Veronica's hand moved toward the papers. Insurance forms. The forged prenuptial agreement. Medical research. Photographs. "Where did you find the combination to your safe? The date of my heart attack?" A bitter smile twisted his face. "Poetic in a way. You've been counting down to my death ever since that day, haven't you?" She was silent for a long moment, calculating angles, searching for leverage. "You were going to kill me." The words hung between them. "At our anniversary party, in front of 400 witnesses, in front of our children." "William, listen to me." "I found the texts to Conrad." His voice cracked for the first time. "Make it look natural. We've waited long enough." "How long, Veronica? How long have you been planning my death?" Her mask finally shattered, not into tears or remorse, into fury. "You want to know how long?" She threw off the covers and stood, facing him in her silk nightgown like a warrior preparing for final battle. 25 years, William. 25 years of smiling, performing, being the perfect Mrs. Thornton while you built your precious empire and ignored everything else. You had everything money could buy. I had nothing! The scream echoed off the walls. I had your schedule, your endless board meetings, your precious daughter from your sainted first wife looking at me like I was dirt she'd tracked in on her designer shoes. You gave me a title, William, a role to perform, but you never gave me a life. You never gave me you. So your solution was murder? My solution was freedom. Her voice dropped to something cold and deadly. The money I was owed. The life I had earned by putting up with 25 years of yours. William stared at the stranger he'd married, the woman he'd shared a bed with for a quarter century. He didn't recognize a single thing about her. "The police," he said quietly, "are already on their way." The color drained from Veronica's face. "You can't be serious." "I have never been more serious about anything in my entire life." 5:30 a.m. Eleanor arrived at the estate, summoned by her father's cryptic text message. "Come home immediately. Bring nothing. Trust no one." She found William in his study, the contingency folder spread across his desk like an autopsy report on her entire life. "Father?" Her voice trembled. "What's happening?" There are police cars outside. Sit down, Eleanor. He pushed the documents toward her. She read, slowly. Her face transformed, from confusion to disbelief to horror to devastating recognition. Richard, she whispered, touching the photograph of her first husband, smiling, alive, 3 weeks before he drowned. My Richard, she killed him? I can't prove it definitively, not yet. But look at the timeline. Look at what happened after his death. Eleanor's hands shook violently. Veronica introduced me to Gregory 3 months after Richard's funeral. She said he would be good for me, help me heal. Gregory is Veronica's nephew. Eleanor looked up, eyes wide with dawning horror. The marriage was arranged, William continued, to control you, to secure your shares in the company, to keep you isolated, dependent, and silent. For years I suspected something was wrong, but Gregory said I was paranoid. Veronica said I needed psychiatric help. They made me think I was losing my mind. They gaslit you, both of them, for 3 years. Eleanor's sob echoed through the study. William moved around the desk and pulled his daughter into his arms. A real embrace, the kind they hadn't shared in years. I should have seen it, he whispered into her hair. I should have protected you. I'm so sorry. How could you have known? She fooled everyone who ever met her. Not everyone. William pulled back, meeting his daughter's tear-filled eyes. A catering server saw through her in a single night. 6:00 a.m. Police cruisers lined the circular driveway. Blue and red lights strobed against the mansion's marble facade. William had orchestrated this moment with precision. He'd invited back select witnesses, the guests who'd witnessed Ivy's dramatic warning. He'd contacted 3 major news outlets with verified tips. This would not happen in shadows. This would be public, undeniable, impossible to spin or suppress. Veronica Thornton was escorted through the grand entrance in handcuffs. Her designer robe was wrinkled, her face bare of makeup, bare of the mask she'd worn for 25 years. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Mrs. Thornton, is it true you attempted to poison your husband? Mrs. Thornton, how do you respond to the charges? Veronica said nothing. For the first time in 25 years, she had no prepared statement, no calculated response, no mask to hide behind. Conrad Wells was arrested at his apartment 90 minutes later. Gregory Hayes crumbled within an hour, trading detailed information for a plea deal. The champagne tested positive for a pharmaceutical compound that, combined with William's cardiac medication, would have triggered fatal heart failure within minutes. Dr. Simmons. If he had consumed that glass, he would have been dead before the applause ended. 10:00 a.m. Service hallway. William found Ivy sitting on a plastic crate, still wearing her stained uniform, hands wrapped around cold coffee. He walked toward her slowly. Then he did something unprecedented. He knelt. Miss Anderson? Sir, you don't have to... You saved my life. His voice broke. You had everything to lose. Conrad threatened Maya, didn't he? Tears filled Ivy's eyes. Yes. And you warned me anyway. I couldn't let it happen. I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent. William pulled a worn business card from his pocket, Eleanor's handwriting. My security team found this. Eleanor gave this to you. 3 years ago, a gas station. I was homeless. Your daughter gave me hope when I had nothing left. Eleanor appeared behind him, saw the card, recognized her own handwriting. That was you? The woman at the gas station? You saved my life that night, ma'am. Tonight I tried to repay the debt. Eleanor knelt beside her father, took Ivy's rough hands in her own. You didn't owe me anything. Kindness isn't supposed to be a debt. Maybe not. Ivy squeezed her hands. But integrity is a choice, and I couldn't choose silence. 2:00 p.m. Press conference. William faced the cameras. Last night, my wife of 25 years attempted to murder me. She was stopped by Ivy Anderson, a catering server my wife publicly dismissed as a black maid. He paused. Ms. Anderson had everything to lose. She warned me anyway. That's called integrity. A reporter. Any message for viewers? William looked into the cameras. Integrity isn't for sale. It's what you give away free. 3 months later, the corner office on the 17th floor of the Thornton Foundation headquarters commanded a panoramic view of the Washington, D.C. skyline. Morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a space that still felt like someone else's dream. Ivy Anderson stood at that window, coffee cup in hand, watching the city wake up below. Director of the Second Chance Initiative. The brass nameplate on her mahogany desk said so. The diploma on the wall, her completed master's degree in chemistry from Howard University, finally finished after all these years, confirmed it. The salary deposited into her bank account every 2 weeks proved it wasn't a fantasy. But the business card in the silver frame beside her computer meant the most. Everyone deserves a safe night. The initiative had launched 8 weeks ago with a simple, powerful mission: helping single parents complete interrupted education, providing childcare so they could attend classes without worry, housing support so they never had to choose between shelter and school, job placement so their hard-won degrees actually led somewhere meaningful. In its first 2 months, over 900 participants had enrolled. Single mothers, single fathers, people whose dreams had been derailed by circumstances beyond their control. People exactly like Ivy had once been. She didn't run the program from behind her desk. Every Tuesday afternoon, she met with participants personally, shared her story without polishing the painful parts, answered their questions with unflinching honesty. "How did you keep going?" they invariably asked, when everything fell apart. "One day at a time," she'd say. "One promise to my daughter at a time. And sometimes, one stranger's unexpected kindness at a time." The divorce had finalized 6 weeks ago. Veronica Thornton received nothing, not a single cent. The prenuptial agreement she'd forged was declared void. The $500 million she'd attempted to steal through murder went to the foundation instead. Her sentence: 15 years to life for attempted murder, conspiracy, and accessory charges in Richard Hayes's death. Gregory took a plea deal. 10 years. Conrad Wells got 25. Eleanor was finally free. Her own apartment. Therapy twice weekly. Real smiles that reached her eyes. The office door burst open. "Mommy!" Maya exploded into the room, backpack bouncing, braids flying behind her like celebration streamers. Ivy dropped to her knees and caught her daughter mid-sprint, spinning her in a joyful circle. "Hey, baby girl, how was school?" "We learned about molecules today. I told my teacher my mommy is a real chemist and she helps people and she was on TV." Eleanor appeared in the doorway, smiling warmly. Her 2 children peeked shyly from behind her legs. "Hope we're not interrupting the celebration." "Never." Eleanor walked to the desk, touched the framed business card gently. "I wrote that 3 years ago. I had no idea what it would become." "That's exactly the point," Ivy said softly. "You didn't do it to be thanked. You did it because it was right." Through the window, sunset painted Washington gold. 6 months later, 2:17 a.m. Ivy's car pulled into a gas station off Interstate 95. The same station, the same flickering orange sign, the same concrete bench beside the air pump. A young woman sat alone in the cold. Early 20s, exhausted eyes. 2 garbage bags containing everything she owned. A sleeping toddler clutched against her chest. Ivy parked, stepped out into the November night. The young woman tensed, prepared for judgment, prepared for cruelty, prepared for someone to tell her she didn't belong, couldn't stay, wasn't worthy of basic human dignity. But Ivy didn't ask what happened, didn't lecture, didn't reach for her phone. She reached into her purse and pulled out 3 items: a hotel key card, $300, a business card for the Second Chance Initiative. "Everyone deserves a safe night," Ivy said softly. "Call that number tomorrow. They'll help you get back on your feet." The young woman's hands trembled as she accepted the gifts. "Why?" she whispered. "You don't even know me." Ivy smiled, sad and warm simultaneously. "I don't need to know you. I just need to see you." She returned to her car. No cameras, no audience, no social media post. Just kindness, passed forward into darkness. William Thornton used to say wealth was measured in zeros, but what he found that night taught him something different. Real wealth is what you give away, and what you risk for a stranger. If this story moved you, subscribe and leave a comment. When did a stranger's kindness change your life? Share this. You never know what one moment of integrity can mean.